going to soul retrieval, right? I think in our last channeling class number 3, for those who might be interested in knowing, beginners level or yeah, beginners level 3, we I think we briefly talked about soul retrieval, right?
Yep.
What can you remind me or share the context of why we were talking about that? And then I definitely have a few questions after that.
Yeah, so your classmate basically talked about, that she had a lot of haunting
Mm-hmm.
of her at night. And she's like, all this, she feels that it is all this because one of her healer explained to her that, as she worked on herself consistently, she become brighter, she become more light, and it's easy as you become brighter and a more light being that it will attract the darker energies like the lost souls,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she seems to think that as she continued to work on herself, as she become brighter, all this negative energy is coming to her and haunting her at night. And because as she worked on herself to develop her intuition and her psychic abilities, she started hearing them and she started to feel that they're waking her up in the middle of the night. But when I heard that, based on a lot of experiences that I have, I do feel that it's part of her soul of her past life that was probably stuck in one of the repeated cycle of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was one of the reasons why we talked about soul fragment retrievals, because it can happen where it will actually be stuck in the repeated manner of that trauma, of betrayal, of hurt and all that. So we did have a chance to take a deeper look into it. She had been an army warrior fighter in many lives, and so there were many justifications and righteousness to why she had to kill in that life. And then there was many other souls who came back to ask for um, an apology, to ask for healing. And a lot of the healing basically was just to hear, I'm sorry I hurt you, right? But of course, in her justification or righteousness of that life, I did what I had to do, right? So that's why uh, that repeated trauma of that souls and her own soul, and as she grew to be more psychic and to be more intuitive, her memories opened up, and so she could feel them hanging around her even
Mm-hmm.
though it is in a different dimension already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you also started talking a bit about like um, why it's important to actually go through soul retrieval and all that. And I think part of the, or one of the things that you did talk about was how um, how your actual body, or like the you today, the body that you have, um, like if you're missing different parts of yourself, it could actually lead to different diseases in the physical body, right? Is that correct? Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it will happen for different parts of the body to have different blockages, right? But whether that's a result of a past life trauma and all that is a case by case situation, right? So how our body is reacting to how we allow the energy to flow in us absolutely will impact how healthy we are and how fast we age and how much energy we have. I can give you some examples. So, for example, if a person has been hung, right? So that trauma of the energy being hung will often lead to neck pain, and also stuck energy there because the memory that my head has been hung or stuck somewhere would always have that unexplained blockage of the energy that cannot flow. So in the
Mm-hmm.
healing, we need to actually work on that to let go of or heal that traumatic past so that the whole body could then actually have a better energy flow. But when we're actually looking at healing the energetic body or the consciousness of the body, there is many different layers. So sometimes it doesn't come up immediately for the healer to see, because they will always work on something that's more immediate. Sometimes it's working on the current life, the traumas of this current life, the healing needed for this current life, before moving on to other parts of the consciousness that is within our energetic body.
Okay. And I think another, yeah, I mean, if my memory serves me, another thing that was mentioned is, um, or we also talked about like ancestral trauma, right? And you were saying how like, you know, some other forms of healing might not be actually hitting the root cause, whereas if you're talking more about like a soul retrieval thing, that can, like, now we're actually kind of hitting that root cause. Can you elaborate more on that, because that definitely got me really interested in this whole space.
When it comes to ancestral trauma,
Yes.
or yep. So part of a lot of people do suffer from ancestral traumas. Like for example, what does it mean to be a woman? For example, right? Or it could often be like, our relationship with money coming from lack, or whether we're good enough, right? So a lot of that has come from ancestral, because you remember some DNA that came from our ancestral line. Like if somebody has been starved to death, right? There's somebody who had been beaten to death for being a woman, right? Or so these are some of the traumas that the ancestral DNA do pass on into our body, right? And sometimes the healing of ourselves in this life will heal that life too, to give them cause and reason to say that, hey, we will not be starving to death in this life, right? That life is past, let it go, right? Or that women are a bit more empowered in where we have chosen to have our experience now. So it's time to heal that and let it go, right? So yes, ancestral DNA do get carried over. So there are certain people who are born like with diabetes, for example, or born with some genetic traumas. Those could come from an ancestral DNA of
Yeah.
energy blockages and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess, I don't know if I ever told you, but like one of my experiences when I was like on ayahuasca, right, was actually, um, I felt like I was brought back to like like, my ancestral time or whatever, and like the whole like clan was being persecuted, right? Lots of blood everywhere. Just like I guess the rest of the family or whatever, was just trying to get away from it all, right? Yeah, and I think that's, I felt like, some healing was done during that, for like while I was kind of experiencing it, while on ayahuasca. And I also like vaguely remember, um, like, Rob the shaman, right? I think I vaguely remember him saying that, like, um, yeah, that sometimes like you healing your own things can actually impact, like, you might actually see a difference in your family,
Yeah.
and like they might not even know why that, like, why they might be happier or feel better or what have you, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I can share one of my own experience in past life where I was in a tribe, and it was a tribe, I can't exactly remember where, but it was more like an African tribe, and there was colonization of the Europeans moving into that location, and they re-diverted the water for the colony to have that fresh river water flowing through to their colony. But what it meant is that the people who were tribes, even if they're nomadic, the animals that were drinking off that river started being dried up, right? So the food source and everything was just parched and dried up, right? So I remembered myself as a young man in that life where my village was just sick and they were so thirsty, right? It was just there's no more water coming to that place. Um, it was a drought, and I wanted to say maybe I could find and move them to a different location because it was a nomadic tribe, and we traveled far and wide, and we just couldn't find any more source of water, and people were just dying in my tribe or village. I can't really exactly remember, but I
Yeah.
volunteered to run as far as I can, being a young man, to try and find another food source, whether there is at least some plants or at least some animals. But I ran as far as I could, and all I could see was dying animals too because they had no more water, and the whole land was in drought and it was all parched, right? In the end, I ran back to the village to die with the villagers or the tribe because we all just died of thirst. There's no more water. And
Yeah.
in that life, I told myself that everything had to be perfect from then on. We have to plan ahead. We had to be very decisive in what we do. So that there became that new belief system that I carried into my DNA, right? And that whole tribe, there are my ancestors as well. And I had to bring healing to myself to say that that was that life, right? Let it go. This is a different life. Not everything had to be that tough, right? It was just an experience. And yeah, after having to come to closure with that, I did notice some change in my family. My mom stopped being so tough, right? But whether she was part of their past life, I don't know, right? But so even though we say that yes, our ancestry would heal, but it may not be my mother, it may not be my father, it may be others. So this is just to let you know that when we talk about ancestry, yes, people would energies may shift, things may change because of the cause and effect, but it's very hard to pinpoint who it impacted, who you infected, and what exactly the change will feel. But
Yeah.
generally, when there's healing and closure, it just lifts the vibration and energy up for the humanity or anybody that you had a chance to impact.
So I guess going to the soul retrieval part, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it sounds like there are very good reasons why one should take their time to work on it, right, or to retrieve their soul fragments. I guess the question is there a way for someone to do it themselves? Um, yeah, like, or what are their options, right? Like, someone might be hearing this and say, I want to go, I feel like I want to go through this soul retrieval. What do I do?
So in a lot of the different healers out there, we are aware of soul fragments. We are also aware of the soul fragments that need to be retrieved. We are also aware that the soul fragments that need to be retrieved needs to be healed. Because just imagine that you bring back another soul that is suffering and then you bring it back into your DNA or bring it back into your consciousness that's still suffering. Then what's the point, right? So I would say I did hear of other healers working with mudras to bring back the soul fragments. Um, Personally, I work with the angels or work with other beings who's able to help bring back our souls from all over the cosmos. Because our souls that may be fragmented may not be from Earth, it may be other parts of the galaxies, it may be in other galaxies far, far, far away.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client when we were working on the soul retrieval. was pretty tough because this client came from a very high dimension to be a human being, so the souls that were fragmented were in so many different galaxies that the beings who came to help was like, we cannot bring back all parts of it, we can only bring back some parts of it, right? So to ask me honestly whether this is something that we could do ourselves, I guess if you're connected to the angels and make that request, um, you would trust that the angels heard your request and trust that the angels made it happen. But yeah, that's as far I could recommend. Um, or maybe the mudras work, but for the work that we do, where we actually have that communication with the beings who's actually working with us, healing us and helping us, we get a lot of deeper insight to how much they could retrieve the souls, and then the souls that coming back, are they broken enough to be healed, or are they so broken that we need to do a different healing for that life first before we retrieve it back. So it could be a very simple work, but it could be complex in itself too.
Yeah,
But I
I
don't tend to work with the complexity because I tend to trust the beings to help with the complexity of it because I'm
yeah,
limited as a human.
yeah. Um, how many are there? Like hundreds, thousands, millions of fragments that like we kind of need to go and retrieve? And when I guess, given your own experience, when you are doing something like you know a soul retrieval per se, uh, is this like is this do you just do it one at a time, or is it like, hey, like as soon as we start this and like we're collecting hundreds of thousands or millions all at once, and it's just like the edge cases like that are still kind of missing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. To be honest, give you an example how a soul can be fragmented. It may happen when you're 3 years old. You fell from a tree. One part of your soul is fragmented at that place, right? One part of it. You were 6 years old. First time you were in school, the teacher yelled at you. It freaked you out. One part of your soul will be left in that scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you were 15. You started dating, and then the girlfriend broke up with you. That could also cause another soul fragment. Just in one life, you could have many soul fragments, or you
Yeah.
nearly met in an accident, or you hurt somebody, right? It could cause some soul fragments. So yes, there may be pieces, thousands of pieces, right? We don't really know. So every time when I do know of soul fragments being collected, I just basically feel the wind of the souls coming back, right? I don't really see them one by one.
Yeah.
Um, yes, and there are times when the beings who is helping with the healing, they'll go, yeah, there's many parts of the souls that need deep healing. We need to work on that first. So there will be some certain scenarios that we need to heal. There are certain past lives that we have to go heal. Yeah, so yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your questions, but yeah, there are many
Mm-hmm.
many pieces that can come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I'm personally interested in knowing is like, does it ever end, or is this like, hey, like even if we were to do some sort of soul retrieval to every day for the rest of my life, there's still gonna be parts missing, right? Um,
Oh, basically we tend to do it once and we trust that the work is done. I've
okay.
never really had to do soul retrievals many times. It's strange to do that. We trust
Yeah.
that that one time and all the souls came back healed. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, that's super awesome to hear. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely love to experience a soul retrieval myself. Yeah, because I think I mentioned to you already, like off the air, that like when you started talking about this, something about this whole topic like really resonated with me, right? So yeah, I don't know what that is yet, but we'll see where this takes me.
Yeah, I think it's really good that you brought that up because a segue to that is that a lot of people sometimes they just have an instinct about something, right? Why is their personality not complete, right? Like, why are they not able to feel that they are completely themselves, right? So there are also hints to that, that maybe part of their souls has been stuck somewhere and that they need to be more complete. So when I
Yeah.
actually do see a client, right, sometimes I do see that when the souls do come back, right, the fragments do come back, I actually do see a more complete energetic self. The colors become more vibrant, or the auras become more solid. So there are certain energetic change when the soul fragments do come back. The healed soul fragments. I can't emphasize that enough. We don't
Yeah.
want to bring back the soul fragments that are not healed.